Welcome to the Parenting with Confidence podcast. I am your host, Teresa Alexander Inman, board certified behavior analyst and infant toddler developmental specialist. So, today, this is going to be so exciting. I am honored to have as our guest David Alston. He has over 35 years of experience as an educator, motivational speaker, public theater. David is the third cousin to Harriet Tubman. Super interesting. He has dedicated his life to helping others to live a free and better life. David is the host of The Underground Subway, which is a podcast that focuses on discussing the issues and strategies that will lead to freedom and a better way of life. David is the author of Blood, Sweat, and Cheers. Love that. The Roadmap to Success, and Son of Another Mother, The Struggle of Adoption. David has a strong passion for motivating others to survive and achieve their purpose. David, welcome, welcome, welcome to the
Thank you
Parenting with
so much
Confidence
for
podcast.
having me. I'm honored to be here.
Oh my goodness, the honor is mine, sir. It's just, after I read a little bit about your story, and I just thought, trauma is it's so prevalent in our day. However, it's one of those things that people don't want to talk about.
Mhm.
And I like your approach to it. And I want to actually start off by asking you basically, what types of trauma have you endured? What types of trauma have you been met with in your life?
Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm just honored to
Yeah.
be here. I'm just thrilled. I've been really looking forward to it. My trauma started at 7 months old, something that happened to me that I didn't know that happened. And then as life progressed, I believe sometimes we go through trauma that we don't know about, and we go through hidden traumas. I went through traumas that I did experience. I was adopted at 7 months and grew up in a single mother home, just my mom and I grew up in a home together. And I've always known that I was adopted. I've always known that she's always told me that I had siblings out there, but we could never find them. And so then you grow up in a home in which you are faced with the idea, the concept of, am I who I am based on my nurture or my nature? And so here I'm in a home of nurture where I'm raised in a strictly, a very highly religious environment. Everything was church. It was nonstop church. It was traditional church where, no holds bar. Everything was strictly by the book. And then you go through a traumatic experience at 11 years old in which you're molested and you never share that with anyone. And you just hold that in. And then you grow up and as I grew up, again, still knowing that I was adopted, I've always wondered, I have a family out there somewhere. And so, but I just came to the realization it is what it is. I'll never really find out, who they are until about 17 years old. I found my adopted family through my little cousin who was 5 years old playing in the Philadelphia phone book, which is about that thick. And my mom saying, "Boy, put that book down." And he says, "Well, I'm looking for someone." And she said, "Well, let me show you how to find someone." So she opens up the phone book, and in the phone book is my biological mother's name. And so she calls her to see, is this who you are? And it's her. And so that's how I met my adopted family. And so I became close with my siblings because I grew up in a home without them.
Mm.
But yet I didn't have that connection with my mom. And she thought that the disconnect between her and I, although we were cordial, we spoke, we talked, she would tell people that I was her son, but yet and still there was not that mother-son connection. And she thought that it was because I was harboring some resentment because she gave me away at 7 months. And I explained to her, listen, that is not who I am. uh, I am not upset that you gave me away, because the alternative to giving me away was you could have thrown me in a dumpster. you could have put me in a trash bag and threw me away. I'm not, there was no disconnect because you gave me away. There's a disconnect because that emotional side of my life that belongs to a mother has already been used up with who I call my mom.
Right.
But I never had any siblings. So that's why I'm really living it up with my brothers and hanging out with my sisters and just enjoying the fact that this guy looks just like me and we're, we have the same sense of humor. And so I went on and, you want to interrupt me and ask me some questions, fine. It just went on through life, just developing a stronger relationship with my siblings, but yet not really connecting with mom. And one of the problems that I had in life is that I've always wanted to travel abroad because, I want to leave the country, but I could never get a passport. And the reason why I can never get a passport is because there was never a birth certificate created with my name on it.
Oh.
Because, and I'm thinking, well, the adoption process isn't really going through. So I would ask my mom, where are my adoption papers? And she would always say, well, I'll look for them. And she never got them. And so there's no birth certificate with my name on it, which means I can't get a passport. So about 4 years ago, I'm talking to my biological mom who says to me, how are you making out with getting your passport? And I said, well, I can't get it. I've talked to senators. The local senator said he couldn't help me, but you need to get that changed because you got money going into an account with David Alston on it with no birth certificate. Because you're looking at the fact that all this happened in the mid 60s. So in
Mm.
the mid 60s, I was able to get a social security card because she just took me there and said, I'm adopting him and his paperwork is coming through. I was able to get a driver's license in the 70s with a social security card and a church baptismal certificate, but no birth certificate. So I'm talking to my biological mom and I said, well, what I really need is my adoption papers. And she paused for a while and I said, well, why are you so quiet? And she says, the reason why you can't get it is because there are no adoption papers. What do you mean there are no adoption papers? She says that I was the youngest of six children. If you make, hopefully some of your listeners are old enough to remember the Brady Bunch, and they had six children, and they had six children on the Brady Bunch, three boys, three girls, and they were all staircase, the oldest girl, boy, girl. Well, that was my family: girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, and I was the last boy. And so my mom explained to me that at that time she was really struggling financially. And struggling financially, my father went downtown and told the city that he was paying her money under the table, not to tax him. They cut off her assistance. She
Mhm.
really struggled financially. She went to a friend who said, wait a minute, I have a friend. My friend has a sister that's in the church. So the sister that's in the church came to offer help, and the help was, let me babysit long term the baby.
Mhm.
And when you get on your feet, come get your child back. After a period of time, my mother went to get me back. And when she went to the house to get me back, there was no one there. And the next door neighbor came out and said, ma'am, who you looking for? And she said, I'm looking for Miss Alston. And the neighbor said, the lady that got the little baby? Yeah. Well, that lady moved out as soon as she brought the baby home. And so I'm saying, do you know what you're telling me that happened to me? And meanwhile, our hearts are just coming together now as a mother and son because you didn't give me away. And I
Mhm.
can only imagine the pain that you went through. And she said that she went for years just drinking heavily until her sister came to her one day and told her, you need to go with me to church tomorrow. We're going to pray. Pastor's going to pray that you stop drinking so much. And she went to church, and the pastor stopped in the middle of his prayer and said, wait a minute, I have an idea. He divided all the church members up because at this time I was old enough to be in school. I had to be in pre-K or something. They went to every school in North Philly looking for me and couldn't find me. They went to the school and I'm sitting in the classroom. But because they did not ask for my adopted name, the secretary didn't know who I was. And so she just came to the conclusion that all hope was lost until I happened to find her. And it was unique because I remember I was in the seventh grade and I went in the hallway one day and I said, I saw a young lady and I said, she is beautiful. Oh, she's beautiful. And my friend said, well, why don't you talk to her? Say something to her. And I said, nah, she's older. She's in the, in the eighth grade. I can't, I've always been shy. And they said, come on, man, you can do it. I said, nah, I'm not gonna say anything to her. I never say anything to the girl. The night that I met my family, I went in the house and my nieces and nephews and everyone are there and they're greeting me. And I looked up and I said, it's that girl. It was my sister.
Oh boy.
And so, and that was the attraction. I saw my sister and I
Yeah.
said, it's something about her, but I can't say anything to her. So, and you fast forward to the fact that I met them and about 10, 12 years ago, we're at our first family reunion on my biological side of the family. And I took my daughter and they wheeled out this huge table with the family tree on it. And I'm looking at the family tree and I see my name on it. And my daughter looks at the tree and she says, Dad, wait a minute, no one is going to believe this. My friends won't believe this. And I'm thinking, what? The fact that my grandfather and I have the same birth date? She says, look who you are related to. And when you look at the family tree, my grandmother on my mother's side, her name was Gola Ross. Gola Ross, her dad was Henry Ross. His brother was Benjamin Ross, whose daughter was Araminta Ross, who changed her name to Harriet, and then she married John Tubman. So my biological grandmother was first cousins to Harriet Tubman, or as I like to tell people, my great grandfather and Harriet Tubman's father were brothers. And
Wow.
so it's a lot of trauma. It's growing up, knowing you're adopted, being pulled between two mothers. And it's one of the questions that I posed when I wrote about it is, who do I owe my allegiance to life? Is it the mother that pushed me into life or the mother that pushed me through life? And what's funny is that as I was younger, all of my actions were from that nurture side. I acted like I was trained. Now, as I'm getting older, I'm acting more like my nature. I'm acting more, I was telling a coworker the other day, and please, you have to interrupt me if you want to, because I
Your
love to
story is
talk.
so compelling. Just keep
I,
going.
I was telling a coworker the other day, I said, now I can eat a slice of bread and I can put peanut butter on it. I could eat a slice of bread and put jelly on it and I could eat it. I just can't fathom eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Until one day I'm talking to my mom and she says she's working in the same profession I was in. I was a behavior specialist. She's working in a classroom with children with behavior, and she says,
Wow.
yeah, I have to feed these kids, and I don't know why they eat peanut butter and jelly. And I'm saying, wait a minute, that's where I got it from. So and all of these things that you're faced with in life, they could derail you. They could just throw you off. Wait a minute. My mom didn't want me. My adopted mom stole me. Why me? Why? But you can't look at life like that. You have to look at life and say, all of these factors contribute to who I am and my purpose. And the moment that I found out my connection with Harriet Tubman, a light went off. And I said, wait a minute. Okay. And when the table was wheeled out, our cousin, who has since passed away, was a historian. He owned a museum that is still in, I think it's in a small town in Virginia called Harrisonburg, West Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and with Harriet Tubman, all of the memorabilia and everything. And he was telling me, he said, you have to if you look at your relationship to her, find that thing in her that flows through the bloodline, because her granddad and your great great granddad was the same person. So his blood may have split, but it trickled down to you. And he was telling me the story about how people always asked the question, did Harriet ever carry a gun? And he said she carried a large pistol with her. And he said that she didn't carry that pistol with her so that she could attack those that were chasing them. She carried the pistol because she would often lead men. That side of the family is unique because my mother's dad's side of the family, they were all tall. On the Ross side of the family were very short. So Harriet was short. He said she was a little short 5 foot woman that was always leading people to freedom. Oftentimes there were men that she would lead to freedom who were 6'5", 300-pound men who would get tired and they would say, I'm not going another step. And when they said that, that's when Harriet would pull the gun out and say, oh, yes, you are. You didn't
Wow.
come this far to stop. And I said, that's me, not in a physical sense, but in a sense of purpose to where when I'm around people that say, I'm not going anymore, I can't do it anymore, I quit, I give out. You have to have something in you that you pull out to say, oh, yes, you will, because you didn't come this far to quit. But yet I can't say that if I wasn't able to pull from my life story and say, wait a minute, I could have quit. I could have given up, slipped into depression because from the time of childhood. And I started off by saying sometimes we go through things that we don't know about. My entire life, I kept feeling like something had happened that I didn't know about, but I didn't know what. I kept feeling something's not right. And then when I found out what had happened, of course, the tears were flowing. I was hurt for my mom. Um, because I was born, my birth name was Edward Bright. That was my birth name. On my enrollment papers in school, she had down my name was Edward Bright, but going by David Alston. That's why when they showed up to the school, they couldn't find me because they asked for Edward Bright and that wasn't listed. So right before my mom passed away, Christmas of last year of 2020 Christmas, she was sick in the hospital. I went to visit her and I remember the last thing I said to her before she passed away. I was in the hospital with her and I was about to leave. And I looked back at her and I told her, I said, well, she told me something that she didn't like to say to her children. She'd say it to her grandchildren. She didn't like to tell her children, I love you. So she looked at me as I was leaving and she said, I love you, David. And I said, I love you too. And I said, hopefully I get to see you again real soon. And she said, okay, drive carefully. See you later, David. And I turned and I looked at her and I said, my name is Edward. And the peace that came over her, that
Yeah.
things had come full circle. And I don't tell that story to for sad effects, but I tell it because we're all faced with opportunities that we can take something and say, this damaged me and it's going to impact the rest of my life. No, you I look at it and say, it happened, I can't change it. I remember my adopted mom told me something before she died, and she died in 2011. She said to me, David, you said something to me when you were 8 years old that has impacted my life. And I'm thinking, me, 8 years old? What could I say at eight? She said, you told me when you were 8 years old, you walked in a room and you said, Mommy, why do we worry about things that we can't control?
Wow. Out of the mouth of babes.
All right. And I'm saying, I said that at eight. She said, eight, you were 8 years old and you said that. And I said, wow. And so I started realizing if I said that at eight, that means that I need to live by that.
Mhm.
That if I can't control it, and one of the things you can't control, you can't change is what happened to you.
Yes.
You can't change it. You can't push a button and say, well, I'm going to change that so that didn't happen. It happened. Now what? What are you going to do about what happened? Are you going to let what happened affect you? Or are you going to let what happened train you and teach you to live a better life? And so that's where I am in life. I'm excited about the fact that what happened to me did not stop me, but it has fueled me to do better and to possibly help someone else. And so that's why I love talking to children that are foster children, children that are adopted, you don't have, you're not defined by what happened or who wanted you, who didn't want you, who did anything to you. You're defined by what's inside of you, and that's what matters. I'm sorry, I just
No, no, no. Honestly, I've been captivated by your story. So thank you for, you know, just sharing so much with us. Now, and just the fact that all of that happened to you.
Mhm.
And not only it appears to me that you don't hold resentment to anybody, towards
Right.
anyone, but also you have used it to fuel you where other people might have been, oh, this happened, so that's why I'm on drugs. This happened, so
Mhm.
that's why all the negative in my life has happened. You chose to go to the other route, saying, you know what, just because this happened to me does not mean. So you made a conscious effort
Mhm.
to make your life different. Did you have any like therapy or anything, or was it that just like
No,
inner strength and
it was just me. I remember when she told me this, when she said something to me, when my mom, biological mom, shared all this with me, I asked her, I guess the question that most people would ask, because immediately I got off the phone with her and I started calling other people in the family. And everyone said, I started calling people on the adopted side. And all of them said, you know what? I believe it. They said, because we were told that you were found on the church steps. So, and different ones started saying, wait a minute. So, is this why she said this? Is this why, in the heat of an argument with her sister, who told her, you need to tell him the truth, that she said, mind your business, I'm not telling him? Is this why someone said that they overheard her say, I wasn't giving him back? But of course, no one knew what that was about.
right.
So I asked my mom the question that day. I said, why? I said, she's been gone. She passed away about 7 years ago. Why are you just telling me this now?
Mhm.
Why didn't you tell me this when we met? And she said to me, because I didn't want you to harbor feelings toward her that would make you approach her, go after her. And I remember saying to her specifically these words. I said, listen, let me tell you something. What you told me has not changed how I feel about her at all,
Mm.
but it has changed how I feel about you,
Mm.
because now I understand the pain that you went through. And so again, it was nothing, someone, as a matter of fact, you asked that question, one of my family members told me, you might need to speak to someone. And I said, quite honestly, no one's going to be able to tell me anything that I don't already know,
Mhm.
which is I'm okay. It hurt for a few minutes, but I'm okay because it's all a part of my story. And we can't pick and choose what goes into the story. You can't eat a cake and say, well, I don't like this part of the egg. It's all in there,
Right.
and everything is a part of my story, my life story, and I'm proud of that. I'm not just proud of the It's easy to say when I'm proud of my life story and point to the success. You have to be proud of the bad things as well, because all of that makes up, I talk about eating a cake. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure of it because I've never made a cake from scratch. But I do believe that if you have to put sugar and the egg and the flour, and I think you have to put some salt in it.
You do, and some kind of fat. Mhm.
Right. Well, we wouldn't just eat the salt,
Right.
but the salt goes in the thing that
Mhm.
you eventually say, I really love, which is the cake.
Yes,
So
yes.
you can't just say, I'll take the good and don't take the bad. I'm going to have to take the bad because it's all a part of the overall picture, which is your life story. And when you come to that realization, it helps you to appreciate the picture and appreciate the salt. I'm not eating salt out of the jar, but
Right.
I may eat some bad things in life, but it's still life.
Yeah, I love your outlook, and, it just it's like, I don't know, where did you get this resilience from? Like, because you've been through so much. And studies have shown that children, can the effects of trauma can start from the womb. And the fact that you've had it
Mhm.
at 7, and they showed also too, like if the child is not yet speaking, then trauma is more like the effects are more prevalent than if a child were speaking. So yours happened really early in life. And
7 months.
yeah, it's
Yes.
it's amazing that you've turned all of that around and just embraced your life for what it is, and not
Mhm.
be, resentful or angry or, that's a beautiful story.
Well, thank you. And
Out of
I have no
ashes.
idea where it came from. As I said, I grew up in a home without uniquely enough, I grew up in a home without a father figure.
Mhm.
I grew up in a home with male figures in the church and uncles who, contributed, but there was no constant father in the home. And you constantly glean from various things. I remember one time I I remember one time my stepfather, well, I don't know what to call him because he was my adopted mom's estranged husband,
Mhm.
but he would come over from time to time. And so I didn't know what to call him because he really wasn't a father, because I had only seen him in the home maybe twice in 20 years. But one time I did come down the steps and I saw him physically beating up my mom.
Ooh.
And so I remember I the jumped down the steps and I grabbed him by the back of his pants and I slammed him on the floor and I jumped over top of him and straddled him. I was so angry because my mom wasn't a violent person. She was, very defensive. And I said to him, if I ever see you lay another hand on my mom, I will try my best to kill you.
Mhm.
Well, he was in shock that this, 18-year-old kid was, so got up, got from over top of him, and I told him, I mean that. Don't you ever put a hand on my mom again.
Mhm.
Well, from that time until the time he passed away, which was about a year later, he and I never said a word to each other. He would come in and out. I had nothing to say to him. I remember the phone rang one morning and it was the nursing home telling my mom that he had passed away. And um, I was only sad because she was sad. And years later, I found myself being very angry, very angry. I was a very violent, angry person. And I went to a conference in Dallas, Texas, with Bishop T.D. Jakes. And someone gave me a pass to slip in the back at one of his Q&A sessions, to which I slipped in and sat there. And he said, anyone have any questions before we go? And I raised my hand and I explained to him what had happened, why I was so angry. And he said, come here. So I went up to the stage and he grabs me and he hugs me. And while he's embracing me, he said, how long has he been dead? I said, 15 years. And he said, son, listen, who you don't forgive, you will become.
Mm.
And it felt like something broke in me. And all of a sudden, from that moment to the day, I don't get angry anymore. It's like, I don't get, So, and I said that to say this, I just glean from different people. Just you pull from, if you don't have that main person at home, you go out and you pull from different people. What, I don't know whether it's an athlete or a church figure or a neighborhood community leader. You pull from people and you can't make excuses about life. That's the bottom line. You can't make excuses about life.
Oh, wow. David, thank you. I think, you know what? We're gonna stop here, otherwise we're gonna keep going forever.
Yeah.
'Cause this has been amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed, just you sharing with us. It's such, you have such a rich history and life and, of experiences and just everything. And the fact that instead of allowing it to break you, you've used it to make you whole.
Yes. Yes. And
And
that's what everyone needs to do.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing. I just
I,
pray that this has given people, everybody listening, given you hope because it is all possible.
well, I thank you for having me. It has taken years for me to break out of the shell to say, let me tell my story.
Mhm.
And now I enjoy telling it for one reason: it can help someone else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your test has become your testimony.
Yes, yes.
So thank you so much for sharing. And hey, everyone, go to the Underground Subway podcast. It's awesome. I listened to a few episodes. I'm like, I started to follow.
All right, thank you.
I really enjoyed it. So I encourage, everybody to go there and listen to you and keep in touch with you. And maybe we can do this again sometime, David, because this has been
Yes,
fun.
just ask.
Okay, I
As
will.
as Michael Jackson used to sing, I'll be there.
All right. Thank you, sir. It's been an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.